B-52's there, and Love Shack. Rounding off today's Toby's TARDIS, and in this hour we're talking to Stephen Vagovics about his music and his latest single, Sunlight. Stephen Vagovics is a 28-year-old singer-songwriter from Bratislava in Slovakia, whose music, heavily influenced by bands like the Beatles, Radiohead and Coldplay, has spanned 6 albums, with his latest single, Sunlight, being mastered at Abbey Road Studios, fulfilling a long-time dream for this avid Beatles fan, who has also authored 3 short crime novels. And Stephen is with us here. How are you today?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm excellent, thank you. Now, your latest single is, of course, called Sunlight. So what can you tell us about that, and what was the inspiration behind it?
The inspiration for Sunlight was basically to write a song which was talking about climate change and about things we basically cannot see with our eyes. It's like I'm singing about things which may be hidden when it's sunlight, like theoretically. I was talking about people being ignorant about what's going on around them. So it's a bit of an ironic song, but it inspired me to do the new album, which will be called Sunlight as well, about the motives of climate change and about social issues going on at the moment.
And what do you hope listeners will take away from the song and the album? Are you hoping that they will perhaps, I guess everybody's aware of climate change, but be even more aware of it and maybe change their own behaviours?
Yeah, I would like to raise awareness about climate change and about people in general, because I think that in the recent years the morality of behavior went a bit down when it comes to society. I think that the issues we are facing at the moment are pretty serious, and I think that it would be good to raise awareness around these topics and issues, and maybe make the listeners think a little about changing their ways for the better.
Now, how would you describe the song in terms of its musical style?
I think, well, it has this classic rhythm which the Beatles used on the piano. It's a pretty basic pop song, but there are also some major 7 chords, and the chord progression is not that usual in the song.
Yeah.
But it's one of my more complex songs because the chorus is a bit longer than in my other songs, and I think that also the mastering at Abbey Road Studios helped the sound quite a bit, because it was a great experience to work there, and it was always my dream to have a collaboration with Abbey Road Studios.
Yeah, but what was that experience like for you as a huge Beatles fan and it being such a famous studio?
It was a bit surreal, to be honest, because in my mind, when I think that about those 60 years ago, a Beatles song was echoing at Abbey Road Studios, and now in the year of 2024, one of my songs was being played there, and it's a pretty surreal feeling. And the experience was great because I was working with Alex Gordon. He's a mastering engineer who worked with Keen, for example. And it was a pretty great experience because he was very nice, kind, and open for revisions. So the overall experience was pretty great.
And how did that come about that you were able to have your song mastered there? Because it's such a famous studio that I'd imagine they don't let anybody come in.
Yeah, I was trying to look up for the information on how to book Abbey Road Studios for quite a while now. Basically basically since my debut album, which was almost 10 years ago at this point.
Wow.
And I found out that you can basically send your song to Abbey Road Studios, and even though the price is quite high, it's still acceptable for Abbey Road Studios because it's such a great studio and probably the most famous studio in the world. So I thought to myself that one day I will try at least one song and I will try either have it mixed or mastered at Abbey Road Studios. And I thought that this was a great time to do it because in November of last year I released Twin Flames, which is my latest released solo album. And since this song, Sunlight, sounds a bit like the Beatles, I thought that it was a pretty great opportunity for me to try it out at Abbey Road Studios.
Your influences not only include the Beatles, but also Radiohead and Coldplay. So how do some of the other ones manifest themselves in your music?
For example, on my debut album, which is called Autumn's Fall, you can probably hear a lot of Radiohead influence because, for example, the opening track, Glancy, on Autumn's Fall, it's pretty chaotic. It's a bit weird sounding melody on the piano, and there are a lot of sound effects in that song. And also the song Eventually from the same album, it's a pretty melancholic song with a bit depressing lyrics, even though the song itself doesn't sound too depressing. But you can hear a lot of Radiohead influence on my debut album. And when it comes to Coldplay, the influence manifested itself on my third album, I think the most, because, for example, Song for Someone could be classified a bit like a Coldplay song. And on my album Twin Flames, the song The New World, it's a bit heavily influenced by Coldplay as well. So these little things, like you can hear a bit of influence on one song, the Radiohead influence on the other song, a bit of the Beatles influence, they all mesh up together in my back catalogue.
Well, we're going to play your new song Sunlight, and we'll talk to you a little bit more after we hear it.
In the sun, shadows sway. That's the game that we all play. Faces hide in plain sight. Underneath the sorrow hides. Plain pretend, sun's embrace. Darkness inside, a never-ending chase. In the sunlight, we don't see black and white. In the sunlight, everything is beautiful. In the sunlight, we don't really care at all. In the sunlight, no one's ever looking for us. In the sunlight, painting on the high wall tells a story we all know. Is it a boy or a girl that I see in the colors? Clouds align, story set sail, sadness from it all in our veins. In
Vagovics, that's his new song, Sunlight. This single is of course called Sunlight, but your upcoming album is also titled Sunlight. So what can we expect from this new album in terms of its themes, sound and style? Is it along similar lines to the single?
Yeah, it will be quite similar. I mean, I always try to do my albums as diverse as possible because I don't really enjoy making albums which have the same song repeated over and over, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so also I have about 5 songs ready. I would like to reach about 11 or 12 songs for the album. And from my finished songs, there is also a dance pop or EDM song which features British rapper Digits. For example, there is an acoustic ballad called You and I. But throughout the album, I decided to use the elements of piano and I tried to heavily use mellotron. So you can hear mellotron in almost every song in some way, whether it's solo or the underlying chords. The mellotron is heavily presented in this album.
And how do you think the album compares to your previous work, particularly with your debut album Autumn's Fall and latest release Twin Flames?
I have developed my singing style quite a bit since my debut album. I always try to do something different with each album. I am pretty keen on delivering a different drum sound on each record, so you can distinguish, oh, this song is from Autumn's Fall and this song is from Better Days and so on. And my latest album, Twin Flames, it was a bit pop oriented. It was a bit heavily oriented at pop sound. You had songs like Waves, which is a modern pop as much as you can call it. And the new album Sunlight, it will be a bit of a return to my former albums because there will be a heavy use of piano and mellotron. So it will also be a loose concept album, as I mentioned, around the topics of climate change and social issues at the moment. I don't want to get too political with my songs, but because we all know what's going on in Ukraine and Israel and so on. But climate change is something we can all agree that is a very serious issue as well, and we have to raise awareness to it as much as possible.
Now, are there any particular tracks on this upcoming album that are some of your favorites?
I like a song called Blue Skies. It's a song which I have just recently finished, and it's a very mellow piano track which talks about the theoretical blue skies which are disappearing every moment more and more from us. So it's also a song which sounds quite a lot like Radiohead, in a sense that the melody is pretty nice, but the lyrics underneath it are quite depressing, to be honest. Yes, so I enjoy this song quite a lot, and it will be released as a single, I think, in around May or June. So this is one of my favorites so far, but also the song Sunlight, my latest single, I like pretty much because it took me quite long to put it together. The original idea for the song was called In the Name of Love, but it was later changed to Sunlight. And I think, Well, basically, at this point, there are no songs on the album which I literally dislike.
Yeah.
So I think that the album, at least for me, will be an enjoyable experience to listen to.
Did you have any memorable moments or even challenges that you encountered while working on your music as a whole, but in particular during the creation of this latest album?
Yeah, I always face some challenges because it's quite difficult to record your songs at home and make them sound professional, nevertheless. One of my biggest challenges when I'm recording is always the singing, because usually the first version I record doesn't sound very good. I have to either transpose the song to either a lower key or a higher key, and sometimes I even have to do some changes to the melody and to the chords so my voice can align with the song and the recording pretty well in the end. Also, the Sunlight, I have recorded like 4 different versions in different keys and with different melodies, and luckily I usually win the battle.
Yes.
I face during the recording, but there are some times when some songs get shelved and I revisit them at some later point in time.
Yeah. Well, we'll play your previous song, Twin Flames, and we'll talk to you more after we hear it.
Since I've met you, my life changed a lot. My eyes couldn't see what was about to come. Thinking of it, I came to realize you are special to me, like no other has been. We are twin flames, one soul into. We are destined to make it through. Is it too late to let go? Our flame shines bright. We are twin flames, now united. Take my hand and I'll take yours. Can we handle our love? Fire burning inside. I'm still not sure if it's going to last. Never felt so much pain, melted with happiness. Let's take a chance and try to make it work. My soul is now yours, my heart open for you. We are twin flames, one soul into. We are destined to make it through. Is it too late to let go? Our flame shines bright. We are twin flames, now united. Take my hand and I'll take yours. Can we handle our love? Fire burning inside. Birds in a cage, as I say how I love you. I am afraid to set them free, but I
Stephen Vagovics is still with us. That's his song, Twin Flames. Now, if we go right back to the very beginning, what was it that originally made you want to get into music?
I was always a very huge music fan. I grew up listening to Queen records because my sister was a pretty big fan of Freddie Mercury and Queen in general, so she collected CDs of Queen, and I really loved Queen and their songs. But Queen, for me, when I heard Queen songs at a young age, I always thought that these songs are just so complex, I will probably never be able to write songs like that. But then in 2009, when the stereo and mono remasters of the Beatles catalog were released, it was an even bigger epiphany for me because I tried to listen to one of the Beatles songs. My first Beatles songs I intentionally listened to was I'm the Walrus, and I was very blown away by this song, and it inspired me to look at the rest of the Beatles catalog. So I started with chronologically Please Please Me, with the Beatles, and ending up with Abbey Road. And I fell in love with the Beatles so much, and the songs sounded human. It wasn't like in the case of Queen, because the Queen songs sound very grandiose and very produced and very complex. The Beatles songs felt to me much more human and simplistic, and I loved it so much that it inspired me to write Perfect Time, which was basically my first properly recorded and properly released song. And many people commented on it that it sounds very much like a John Lennon song. So it inspired me pretty heavily to keep going and keep trying to write as many songs as possible. And I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and luckily I still have new ideas for new songs and new inspirations for new material. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out in the end.
And you're, of course, from Bratislava in Slovakia, so how has living there influenced your songwriting and musical style, if at all?
I have to be honest that I'm not very aligned with the style going on in Slovakia, because most of the people in Slovakia, they listen to either rap music or metal music, like really heavy metal music where there's a lot of screaming and stuff. But one of the Slovakian artists called Miroslav Žbírka, unfortunately he died, I think it was 3 years ago at this point. His music was heavily influenced by the British music, so the Beatles and Kings and so on. So I love Miroslav Žbírka and his music. So Miroslav Žbírka is probably the only artist which inspired me from the Slovakian music scene. There are also some other bands like No Name or Billy Barman. I like those bands quite a lot as well, but Miroslav Žbírka was, from my point of view, the only artist who wrote original music in the style of the British music scene, and he was a great person as well. He also recorded at Abbey Road, so when I was influenced by somebody from the Slovakian music scene, it was Miroslav Žbírka.
Yeah. You've also written 3 crime novels as well. So how's your experience as a crime author influenced your songwriting process?
I wrote my first crime novel when I was about 16 years old, because originally I wanted to try have a chance at writing books. I wanted to be an author primarily. It was basically because I wanted to try it out, and I've always wanted to write a book. So I wrote The Mystery of Deadly Daisies, the first part of my crime novel series called Herbie. So it influenced my songwriting in such a style that when I write lyrics to my songs, I always try to do a bit of hidden imagery, a bit of hidden meaning behind it, and also a bit of storytelling. Like one of my songs called Guiding Light, it's involved pretty heavily in storytelling. It tells a story of a man seeking his own guiding light because he was feeling lost, and in the end he found out that he had a guiding light guiding him all the time. So so Guiding Light is one of my songs which was pretty involved in a bit deeper storytelling.
Well, what's next for you after the release of Sunlight? Do you have any other future projects in the works?
I would like to write an album which would be very much inspired by hard rock or a bit of a rockier music.
Yes.
Yeah, because one of my albums, Memory Lane, which was my sophomore solo album, it was a bit heavier. It had a hard rock sound, and the opening track, Starting Again, could be identified as a punk rock song. So I would like to go back to that because I've been recently rehearsing with my band, with which I would like to do gigs with. And rock songs are the easiest for us to rehearse because you have the basic arrangement of drums, bass, and guitars. And it's much easier to rehearse songs like this than the songs which have elements of synths and a bit more complicated production. So as my next album after Sunlight, I would like to write a bit of a more rock album.
Exciting. Well, in the meantime, where are we able to find all the music that you've came out with so far, including the single Sunlight and the album Sunlight when that comes out?
All of my music has been released on all the major streaming platforms, on iTunes. You can also listen to it on YouTube because I release each one of my songs as an audio or lyric video on my YouTube channel. And on my official website, I'm currently working on it because I had to remove the original website. It was too cluttered with old files, old WordPress plugins, and so on. So I'm working on a new version of my website. And on my official website, stevenvagovics.com, you can also buy CDs, and I'm also working on the possibility of vinyl. So you can either buy CDs or vinyl as well on my official website.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for talking to us today. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It was a great honor to be on your show.